Stop getting Zone 2 wrong. Zone 2 training promises so much. Get fitter and faster, seemingly without trying very hard. It is like so hot right now. However, there are some very common, easy to make mistakes that means you're not actually training Zone 2 when you think you are. Before we start, let's quickly remind ourselves what Zone 2 actually is, so we're all on the same page. Because it's a name that causes a little bit of confusion, mainly stemming, I think, from the fact that there are so many different zone training models out there. Which one does it correspond to? The simple answer is, well, just forget about all of those and concentrate instead on your breathing. Okay, Zone 2 refers to a level of exercise intensity where you're burning the maximum amount of fat that your body can for fuel. It's just before you shift metabolic gears, whereas your intensity increases, you then lose the ability to burn so much fat because your body instead is needing to burn carbohydrate for fuel. Now, you know typically when you're in Zone 2 because it's that point just before your breathing rate really starts to increase. So often the telltale sign of being in the right place is that you can still exercise whilst breathing through your nose or talking in complete sentences. And the reason people get so excited about Zone 2 is because in theory, this is the exercise intensity where you're taxing your mitochondrial function the most. Mitochondria being your cells' powerhouses. Yes, that's right. Now, the more mitochondria you have and the better they work, the fitter, the faster, and the healthier you are. So, what's not to like? The first mistake that people often make is not listening to your body and instead gauging Zone 2 off a piece of tech that tries to work it out off your max heart rate or off a power zone calculated from FTP. It doesn't work. Your Apple Watch does not know your Zone 2, and nor does your Garmin. And that's because everyone's Zone 2s are slightly different proportionally to max heart rate or FTP. And I'd say that it wouldn't matter were it not for the fact that you don't need any tech at all to give you a pretty accurate gauge. So instead, as I've just mentioned, you listen to your body, find a nice steady climb or a flat road and ride along it, gradually changing your pace, and then you can get a feel for how your breathing rate changes as you try harder. One of the most important things in Zone 2 training is to stay in the zone. So a really common mistake is choosing to do a ride that makes it hard or even impossible to do this. Now, it might be that you're doing a hilly route, so that when you're on climbs, you can't stay in Zone 2 because you've got to go too hard. But then conversely, you can't stay in Zone 2 on descents either because you can't go hard enough. Or it might be doing a group ride. Unfortunately, Zone 2 training can be pretty antisocial unless you have to be lucky enough to have a very well-matched riding buddy. In a group, you could well find that if you're on the front, you're doing Zone 2, everyone else behind is taking it too easy, or the riders on the front have to go too hard in order for everyone else to be in the correct zone. Now, going too easy isn't a problem per se, it's just not Zone 2 training. It's Zone 1 training, which is definitely really beneficial too, but you've got to spend a little bit longer doing it. Perhaps not quite so time efficient. Conversely, going too hard is also a common mistake. Now, likewise, it will still give you a training effect, but it definitely won't be Zone 2. And the most important thing to remember is that even if you go out of Zone 2 for a short period of time, if you shift into that next metabolic system, as we heard from Dr. Inigo San Millán, the reluctant poster boy of Zone 2 training, it actually takes a while for your body to get back into Zone 2. So put it this way, if you were to go for an hour Zone 2 ride, and in the first 10 minutes, go full gas up a climb, your body's actually going to be going bananas for the next 30 minutes. And so you won't have a zone 2 training ride. So what it might mean in reality is that if you're out riding with your mates and they go too fast, you need to let them go, or you end up riding up climbs really, really steadily. You might have to just choose completely flat routes, or indeed, this is where riding the indoor trainer can be really beneficial as well. Zone 2 training definitely has its disciples and its zealots. And I get it, it makes sense, right? It's super effective and most of us will benefit from doing more of it. Plus, because it's not super taxing, most of us can tolerate doing more of it as well. However, if you only do zone 2 training, I'm pretty confident that you will not be as fit as if you mix it up. So doing longer zone 1 rides, if you've got the time, are absolutely brilliant. And irrespective of your goal from cycling, all of us, I think, will benefit from doing harder zone 4 / sub-threshold work as well. The legendary coach, Louis Passfield, hit the nail on the head when he said that variety is the spice of training. It doesn't mean that you need to do everything every week, but at least every few weeks you want to be hitting on training that works on all your different energy systems and different intensities. That is the most beneficial approach. Speaking from experience, my riding is fairly constant, so I always have a constant level of fitness. But when I shock my body by doing something different, then I really feel the benefit from it. Now, something I've been wrestling with is how to manage zone 2 training whilst also maintaining training load. Training load being a description for how much training you can do, basically. Now, in my case, I get to do about 5 hours riding a week. And I have a feeling that if I did 5 hours of zone 2, I wouldn't be as fit as I am now. In order to increase my training load, I either need to do more hours or more intensity, or both in fact. And so in my case, when I can't do more hours, that leaves me with only one option. The catch-22 here though is that if you only do high intensity training, that also will leave you in a bit of a hole. And hence the dilemma, and hence in fact why I can't get any fitter than I am now. I'm stuck on a plateau basically. So whilst that may or may not be relevant to you, I think it's an important thing to consider, and another reason why you need variety in your training. And often, if you want to get fitter, you just got to spend more time riding your bike, which is a bit of an unfortunate thing, isn't it, really? Having just mentioned my 5 hours of riding a week, I also have to say, if I only did 5 hours of zone 2, I would also be incredibly bored. Some zone 2 is absolutely great, and I'm really lucky that I've got riding mates I can go out with and have a chat to whilst riding in zone 2. But I love riding fast, I love riding off-road, I love the feeling of getting out of breath, as you can hear now, none of which is zone 2. But you know what? It doesn't matter, right? Life is too short to get too hung up on zone 2. So if you, like me, like doing other stuff, do it. Do what you love. Any riding is good riding, and it's certainly better than not going out on your bike because you can't face it. So that might mean not being antisocial and going on group rides and trying really hard to not get dropped on climbs. Just don't be that rider that's getting zone 2 training right, but getting friends, life, and fun all wrong. Make sure you hit the like button if you agree with that statement. And remember as well, get involved in the comment section as well. Let us know if you've been making any of these zone 2 training mistakes. Remember, you've got to get into zone 2. Can't rely on your tech to tell you what it is. But you don't have to. Listen to your breathing, spend a bit of time working it out, and then choose those rides that allow you to stay in the zone. And then lastly, don't get too hung up about it, because whilst it is really great, you can also end up losing friends and alienating people from doing it. I'm gonna go do some intervals now.